Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I'm Vishal Singh at levelup IS, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why to choose history optional. I have with me today Miss Deeksha Chourasiya, who has secured rank 44 with history optional. She secured 286 marks in history optional, and with her I'll be discussing why history optional makes sense. So we want students to make an informed choice regarding their choice of optional. बहुत important decision होता है. तो we are going to be focusing on certain themes कि first of all कि optional को choose करने का criteria क्या होना चाहिए. Secondly, हाउ हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल इज़ हेल्पफुल. तो उसके जो प्रोज हैं कि लिंकेजेस विद अदर जीएस सब्जेक्ट्स इन जीएस पेपर 1 एंड पेपर 4, पेपर 2 ऑल्सो, ऐसे का पेपर वहाँ पे किस तरह से हेल्प कर सकता है. एंड व्हाट आर सम थिंग्स टू बी केयरफुल अबाउट वाइल चूजिंग हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल. देयर मस्ट बी सम थिंग्स दैट यू नो कि हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल के प्रिपरेशन में दीज थिंग्स आर ऑल्सो इन्वॉल्व. सो इफ़ यू आर लुकिंग टू टेक द प्लंज विद हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल, ये सारी चीज़ों के बारे में आपको क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए. So with that, without any further ado, let me continue this conversation with Deeksha. Thanks. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, Deeksha. I hope you're doing well.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm good.
Right. So the theme for today's discussion in History Darbar is why should we choose history optional, right? What does history optional offer over and above other options? There are a number of options under consideration. So those who are about to pull the trigger or have some doubts, Diksha will offer some insights into how to make that choice, both for students with a background in history and also for those without. तो जो डिसीजन मैट्रिक्स है कि हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल क्यों लेना चाहिए, वहाँ पर मतलब इट कैन बी अ लिटिल ओवरवेलमिंग स्पेशली फॉर इनिशिएट्स जिनको लगता है कि सिलेबस बहुत बड़ा है या हिस्ट्री एज अ सब्जेक्ट बहुत वास्ट है, हैंडल करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है, सोर्सेज बहुत ज़्यादा वेरिड हैं. तो हाउ डू वी गो फ्रॉम हैविंग एन अफिनिटी टू हिस्ट्री कि बचपन में पढ़ा था तो अच्छा लगता है या फिर ग्रेजुएशन में हिस्ट्री था, फ्रॉम वहाँ से लीप लेना कि यार मुझे 1 साल 1.5 साल हिस्ट्री के साथ ही चिपक के करना है एंड माई होप्स आर गोइंग टू रेस्ट ऑन हिस्ट्री. सो दीक्षा, विल यू प्लीज टेक अस थ्रू हाउ यू मेड दैट डिसीजन फॉर योरसेल्फ एंड दूसरों के लिए क्या आपका एडवाइस होगा?
So hello everyone. I graduated from history honors from Miranda House, and that made me make the decision of taking history optional very natural, right? So I took history optional because of my background. Plus, I had history in my in my 10th and 11th and 12th as well. So in my schooling as well as in my college, I was accustomed to this subject, which is why I chose to take this subject. But I know for a fact that for all of you, बहुत अलग अलग background से आते हैं लोग, but they still opt for history optional. So I think history optional लेने का decision is something that should be based on some objective criteria, and selecting an optional for this exam is really important because it will decide your cadre, your future, your rank, uh, which service are you going to get. So it all depends on optional. So yes, it is a very important decision, as important as choosing a life partner, because you will stick with this optional for the next 2 to 3 years. So yes, definitely, it's a very crucial point where you have to select it. And the objective of this session will be to make sure that you take this decision on a very objective criterias, and if I'm able to help even one person to make that decision for you or to help you in that decision, I think it will be a success. At the end of the day, it is you who are going to decide for yourself. We are just here to guide you, or to just I am here to share my experience. So I think that is it, sir. We can start. So I think when I was choosing an optional, I saw 4 criteria of selecting optional. So I'll first speak on those 4 criteria, and then we'll see the pros and cons of history optional. So firstly, the criteria that I think is interest. You should have basic interest in this subject, because आपको आधे दिन इस subject के साथ बैठना है for the next 2 to 3 years or maybe more. So basic interest होना is foundational for this. And basic interest does not mean that आपको जोधा अकबर देखना पसंद है. So basic interest means that you should have a curious mind कि ऐसा क्यों हुआ था, ऐसा क्या हुआ था, ऐसा what were the consequences of this, and you're genuinely intrigued, और you're genuinely जिसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, आपको चुल होती है जानने की. So I think that curiosity is something that is required in history. Because the more you're curious, the more you will be inclined toward knowledge, right? So I think that is very important. The second criteria, I think, will be availability of resources and guidance. So history optional लोग समझते हैं कि बहुत vast है, बहुत ज़्यादा material है. So for me, I had basic notes prepared before prelims only. And मेरे graduation के भी थे और schooling के भी थे. So I think because I had resources, I had some contacts with my teachers, level up. So I knew कि I had some backing of resources and mentorship. The third criteria, which is important, is that you should have basic familiarity with the need of that subject. So for that, you need to pick up the syllabus, look at the PYQs. And आप देखो कि आपका aptitude है कि नहीं, whether you're able to read, whether you're able to make sense of it or not. So basic familiarity में आपको syllabus देखना है, PYQ देखना है, and just make sure that will you be able to write answer on that or not. So this was the third criteria, and the fourth criteria, I think, will be looking at the trend of the paper. Like history optional has been performing well, at least like for the last 2 to 3 years, and this year also we had a lot of toppers in top 100 as well. So I think the past trends, how the people are getting marks, especially the toppers. So when I was taking history optional, I looked up to the example of Vikram Grewal sir and Shruti Sharma ma'am. So they were also from DU and they had gotten very good marks. So the trend helped me, the resources, mentorship, interest. So that was it that helped me take this decision. On my result day, I was thanking history so much क्योंकि previous कुछ attempt में I used to curse history कि उसने बहुत मेरा time लिया है, ये किया है. But on the result day, I knew कि history is something that got me my rank. So definitely वो interlinking बहुत जगह होता है. Starting with GS1, I think 100 marks का direct impact आपका आता है GS1 में on history. And history आपको अलग से पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, so you can focus more on geography and society. So definitely GS1 में I got 112, basically because of history, I think. तो एक edge तो देता ही है वो. You don't have to write optional वाले answer in GS1, but still if you can add one extra point, या एक आपने एक diagram भी बना दिया नया, या एक different perspective बता दिया. For example, इस बार we got the architecture of Chandelas. The question came on that, and we had discussed much in detail about the philosophical aspects to it. So I wrote that in Jyotiba Phule's question, in French Revolution question, world history part जो है GS1 का, it becomes really a cakewalk for history optional students. And वो questions बाकी लोग नहीं कर पाएंगे definitely. So 100 mark का gap you can cover with history optional. Secondly, in essay, most of my essays started with a historical example or an anecdote. So that is something that will hook the examiner, क्योंकि वो history जानते ही हैं सब. Everybody knows what happened, so it will hook the examiner. It will provide a very apt example to the philosophical essays. क्योंकि philosophical essays they all only talk about the values, and the way to prove that value is to take history as an example. So in essays, definitely. For example, इस बार के essay में, I think the one essay that I wrote was on best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. So I wrote this essay, and in that essay, I wrote about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the nuclear race that started and how we learned from it. So history is something that will give you a lot and lot of content in essay, especially. And thirdly, I used history a lot in GS4 as well. Ethics में, in all my copies, there was one example of history in every question. So that gives a very unique perspective. क्योंकि ethics में ज़्यादा history लिखते नहीं हैं लोग, but I think it is a very good chance of using your optional and fetching more marks in ethics as well. Interview maybe I think everybody knows history. So the interview board is bound to ask you questions on history, and if you have basic interest, and I think वो conversation बहुत interesting हो जाती है by having that
पूछा था
option.
उन्होंने?
I think I think the chairman only asked. My starting question was that it is said that history is written by the rulers, and history is written by the victors. Do you agree with it? So it was a debatable and a conversational question. Then they asked about Vedas and the utility of Vedas. So a lot of interesting questions.
मतलब हिस्ट्री के ऊपर ही कई सवाल हो गए वहां पर.
Yes.
ओके ओके. अच्छा, लेट अस सी इफ वी हैव सम अदर क्वेश्चंस. Sunisha is asking, if we are choosing history optional, which will be overlapping with GS, but maybe in my view, will not help much as the approaches would be extremely different. GS will definitely give a framework, but again, to write an answer for GS, we'll have to look for GS format from that lens. How helpful will it be? So, your thoughts, that I will chip in over here.
I think history का knowledge is like water. आप optional के paper में you set it in a different ice cube वाला खाचा, and in GS paper you put that water in a different kind of jug. Change बस आपको structure करना है. The knowledge is the primary part here. If you have the knowledge, you can anyway morph the answer, morph the way you are writing. So वो आपके aptitude और answer writing की ज़्यादा ability होगी rather than the optional subject.
ब्यूटीफुली पुट. मैं भी इसी तरह का कुछ एनालॉजी देने वाला था कि हिस्ट्री एक इंसान की तरह है. मंडे के दिन एक कपड़े पहनता है, वेंसडे के दिन दूसरे कपड़े पहनता है, बट बेसिक उसका जो कोर है दैट रिमेन्स द सेम. तो इट इज सिंपली अ मैटर ऑफ आर्टिकुलेशन दैट डिफर्स. तो बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन वो सेम ही रहेगा. तो दैट हैज टू बी व्हाट इज बेस्ड अपॉन. राइट.
I think there are some misconceptions about history optional in general and some myths कि बहुत factual है ये subject and you have to learn a lot of dates, names, historiography. That intimidates a lot of people. And I think वो misconception should be drawn away क्योंकि history is also a lot of analytical study of what had happened and not just the factual. I personally have written only 2 to 3 dates in my paper, cumulative. So no, it is not a factual paper. It is all the more analytical paper, which requires you to interlink different themes. There is a second misconception कि notes बस market से ले लें किसी toppers के and that is it. You don't have to make the notes yourselves. But I think that is also a myth. You have वो बोलता है ना कि मरे बिना स्वर्ग नहीं दिखता है. तो no, you have to make your own notes. हर चीज पे खुद का होना चाहिए. And I for no, जो भी लोग स्टार्ट करेंगे जर्नी दे आर गोइंग टू मेक बल्की नोट्स फ्रॉम द स्टार्टिंग और वो धीरे धीरे वाटर डाउन होके बहुत शॉर्ट नोट्स में बन जाएंगे. सो आई थिंक द थर्ड मिसकंसेप्शन इज कि आपको बल्की नोट्स नहीं बनाने. यू हैव टू मेक वेरी शॉर्ट नोट्स बट वो 3 या 4 रिविजन के बाद ही आएगा. And I think I had put, for an example, this was my world history ke notes. Like this was the thickness of the world history ke notes. But at the end, वो बस इतना हो गया था. So that is it. And I think वो revision के साथ आता है. The more you revise, the more you water down the content, and it will become easier for you. And I think बस यही myth है कि इस subject के बारे में, which should not be the criteria with which you select or not select the optional.
Right. Thank you so much, Deeksha. Any closing remarks, and then we'll close out this session.
No, I think if you want to reach me out, you can reach me out through Telegram as well. And if you have any personal questions, you can ask me. Choosing an optional is definitely a very difficult decision. So think it through and sit with it. Don't have any prejudgments. And at the end of the day, take your decision on objective criteria. So that's it.
Acha, Deeksha, what is the name of your Telegram channel?
I'll share the link, sir.
अच्छा, ठीक है. Thank you, Deeksha. We'll be seeing you next week. Thank you.
Sure.